Hi bakers, we're back and we're on step 4, mixing. If you're following along in your Community Loaves playbook, we're here on page 4, all right? Step 4, page 4. Now, there are 3 ways that we coach you through mixing this bread loaf, and honestly, there could be 8 ways. There's more than one way to get a really good loaf of bread, but we cover 3 different mixing styles, one by hand, another using a KitchenAid mixer, and another using an Ankerstrom mixer, which is a machine that has a very different process for moving the dough around and kneading it. Right this very moment, we're going to mix by hand. What do we need to be ready? Well, we need a mixing bowl, we need our pre-ferment, and we need our autolyse. We actually have all 3 of those items, so let's begin. A helpful item that I didn't mention is some water. If you can have a finger bowl around, that can, especially with the hand mixing, that can make for easy cleanup and help you from wearing too much of your dough. All right. In your mixing bowl, let's begin. Take your mixing bowl and scrape in your pre-ferment. In this case, my pre-ferment is from the Modern. It's the Poulish, but this could also be your Levain from the Classic or the Purist. Once you have your pre-ferment in the base of the bowl, this is your more fluid, liquid ingredient. You're going to add your autolyse. My autolyse has been hanging out for a little over 2 hours. What we want to do with this autolyse is chunk it up. It's going to make it easier to incorporate, which is the first mixing goal, is to take the wet, loose pre-ferment, the Poulish, and incorporate the autolyse into one cohesive, even density mix. All right, to do that, I like to chunk this up, maybe very large golf ball, racquetball size, into your mixing bowl. We're doing this by hand. Hopefully you can see. I have my bowl scraper with me. And now I'm going to cut this in. Hand mixing takes a little work. This is why we're all excited when we get a brand new mixer. But it's also really therapeutic and fun. And nothing replaces hand mixing for understanding the various stages that your dough goes through. I want to make sure that you can see in the screen. I have a tendency to move this bowl around. This, for those of you who are interested, is a 2-loaf batch. We have many bakers who hand mix with a 4-loaf batch. That's just more quantity. The method is the same regardless of the batch size. This motion here of incorporating the wet Poulish in with the stiffer autolyse. This is the pincer method. Think of a crab claw or a lobster claw and coax this in. My good friend George DePasquale from Essential Baking uses both hands. I'm going to get both hands involved soon enough. But right now, I'm trying to get this incorporated, just using one hand. If I feel like I'm getting too gunked up, and I think that's a technical term, you can take your nearby water and dip your hand in. You're not really adding much water, but it just helps you get cleaner. So what we're doing And what we're looking to accomplish is an even density mix. We don't want what we have here, loose bits of the pre-ferment and chunky, thick bits of the autolyse. We want to feel like the dough is coming together in one density. How long will this take? Well, it depends on how much muscle you're putting into it. This can take anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. I didn't mention in the pre-setup, I do have my yeast and my salt all measured out and ready to go. Don't be afraid to change your motion as things start to come together. So an example is you can use gravity to help this dough start to blend. This is similar to the roubade method. You can look that up on YouTube, Google it. It's a mixing and kneading style. Some of you have seen earlier videos where I moved straight to a slap and fold process, and many of you have endured the drama of oatmeal all over your kitchen walls. Changing the method up just a little bit because I've learned that although the slap and fold is a classic, we don't have to do that right away, and we can eliminate some of that dough all over our kitchen. My dog wishes I hadn't figured that out. He was part of the cleanup committee. Okay, so we're getting closer. You can start to see how this has come together. And now that I have a dough that is more consistent all the way through, I'm going to add my yeast. Once I fully incorporate my yeast, and I believe I'm getting some good gluten development, then I'm going to add my salt. Then I'm going to do a slap and fold after I get that salt in to really get the gluten developed to a window pane. This whole process could take us 20-25 minutes. So let's add the yeast. I'm just going to sprinkle it right in on top and begin to mix this in, to fold it in on itself. You can also knead this with a fist motion, turning the bowl, folding this in on itself, repeating. This, oh, sorry for the clang. This is when I would probably do a little bit of slap and fold. Let me try to get this back in front of you. I like doing this by hand. So using the bowl, using a little gravity, I am making sure that that yeast is all mixed in. One of the ways that you're going to know that it's all mixed in is you're not going to be able to feel the yeast in there. There will be no granules of the yeast in the dough. I'm going to pause just 1 second here to try to demonstrate a quick window pane at this stage before we've even added our salt. A window pane is a thin stretch of dough that you could see light through. and you know you've got good gluten development, strong enough to hold the air bubbles, get a good rise out of our bread, when you can pull that window pane. It's too early for us here at this stage. And so it's good to see that we're getting gluten development, but we cannot pull a thin membrane. We'll contrast that to what we can establish a little bit later. So we just keep on going. Now, some of you will say that you mixed and you mixed and you mixed, and I believe you. It's helpful to have a timer because time does funny things, and you'll think you will have mixed for 15, 20 minutes, but it might only have been 10 minutes. So a timer is helpful. Also, if you get tired, especially with hand mixing, take a break. I can walk away from this for a minute and come back and apply new, fresh energy. Or I can drink a sip of my coffee, which I'm going to do. So this is the yeast is in. This dough is coming together. It's time to add our salt. And similar to the yeast, we want to get that incorporated. We don't want to feel any bit. And then we're going to do a slap and fold until we can pull a window pane. Okay, so I'm getting this salt in. What does salt do? Salt improves gluten development. So that's one of the reasons for doing this as a second stage. You don't have to do it that way. I learned it from Mel Derbyshire, who is the head baker of Grand Central Baking. She likes adding the salt later in your bread development. One, it allows you to see how your dough is developing, and it allows you to really push that last bit of gluten. Once we have a good gluten development, we've pulled our window plane, then we're going to add our oatmeal. This is a very different process that I'm like enjoying doing than the early days of Community Loaves. And if you like the early day process, you stick with that. It's just fine. Okay. I'm going to begin a stretch and fold process. And what is that? You'll notice that I don't have any flour around, okay? I should have my bench scraper around. I'm going to grab one from my drawer right here. Water still is your friend. I don't need my scale. With the stretch and fold, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to strengthen the gluten. We use the kitchen counter or your bench to pull and align those gluten strands, and we flip the dough over. If some of it sticks, like I've got a portion here stuck, don't worry about it. It's going to come back up in this process. And if I get too much, that's why my dough scraper is so handy. So you're going to hear me thump about this. Now, how long are you going to do this? Well, you're going to do this until you can pull a good window pane. That's going to be 5 to 10 minutes. We did a lot of mixing in the bowl already. So this is already coming along nicely and nothing is flying. What you will not see here is flour. Avoid that. Even if you feel it sticky, this is going to come together and de-stick just from the kneading process. I'm going to keep going here for a few minutes and then we're going to pull a window pane, okay? Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. I've been slap and folding this dough, but I want to call attention to something that probably will happen at your house. And that is you're going along, everything is cohesive, but it might start to fall apart like a donut ring and break into a couple of pieces. That's okay. Don't worry about that. Just keep enduring the slap and fold. Just keep on going. It will come back together, all right? That is not uncommon, and you've not done anything wrong. Just keep on going, all right? All right, I'm going to keep on going. Okay, so I've continued to torture this bread dough with a slap and fold. I want to pause and do a window pane check. This is very common in the bread world. It is a way for bakers to know how strong the gluten is, and you want that gluten web because it traps all that wonderful air and gives our bread lift. And we want lift in our sandwich loaf. So to conduct that window pane test, pinch off some of the dough. Wet your hands is a good idea. And gently tease apart this dough. Now, you're looking for dough that's bucky in nature. It should pull back from you. And I'm going to see if you can see this. There it is. You want it to be like an elastic, like a rubber band. It should be pulling in as you're pulling away. You want some strength there. If it breaks too easily, we're not done. If you can pull this with some strength and get a thin membrane that you can see light through, we're done. Now, we're not done. We're close though. I would say it's another couple of minutes of mixing. Again, don't forget that if you are, or kneading, if you are getting tired, getting a little hot, then give yourself a break, a minute or so, and then come back and just keep on going, which is exactly what I'm going to do for another 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, bakers, I'm feeling really good about how this dough is coming together. Gluten happens. Some of you may be wondering, as you are breaking into a sweat, what this no knead is all about, because that sounds really good right about now. And the reality is that gluten does automatically develop over time. We may not want these loaves to take the 12 hours it would take, so kneading is really helpful. I also want to let you know that it's near impossible to over knead. Overmix, over knead is not a pitfall of home-based bakers. If you continue to knead your bread, what would it look like if it was over kneaded? It would break apart. The cell structure of the bread would release all of its water, and you would get this ropey mess, and you would not be able to recover from it. But the good news is that I have never seen that happen. It takes a long time. This is another fun one to do a YouTube search on. You'll see some intrepid bread scientists that go the distance on over kneading their bread dough, and it takes a long, long time. Your best indicator that you're done mixing is your ability to pull this window pane. So we're going to try again. We did it once before. We were not ready. This dough is buckier. I can feel it. It's pulling back. It has nice development. Again, I'm wetting my hands. I'm pulling off a, 50-cent piece size of dough. And I'm not just yanking it. I'm gently teasing it apart. I'm understanding its strength. Does it pull, resist, but resist gently? Can I coax it into this membrane where I can pass light through it? And we're there. Yes, I can also get a hole, but this is considered good, moderate development for our bread dough. And I could stop here, and when I'm working with the hand mixing, I'm really tempted to stop here because I'm tired. I can continue to mix this in the bowl. For those of you who want to do a combination of mixing, this might be a time where you're like, okay, I've done what I can by hand. You can throw it into your mixer and finish it off there. Or you can start the process in your mixer, and your mixer starts to grumble. Take it out and finish it off by hand. So we are back on this slap and fold of our bread dough, really coming along nicely. It's been several minutes at it. I'm not sure exactly how much time. Often I will have a timer just to keep me honest about the amount of time. It feels like forever, but it probably isn't. I want to do another window pane test. So here we go. I'm pitching off, about a 50-cent piece size. Wet hands are your friend, just a little bit. I'm not introducing a lot of water into this dough. And I'm teasing this apart. Again, this dough is got some resistance, some elasticity. It's bucky. And I can get a thinner and thinner membrane pulled. And now you begin to see, I really want to have a good example here for you. Okay. Now we're going to add the porridge. Okay. We're going to add our oatmeal porridge. Why the heck do we have an oatmeal porridge in this formula? Well, for two reasons. For flavor, for nutrition. That's it. It gives such a moist and delicious loaf, and it adds more fiber. And we could all use more fiber. So that is the gospel, right? How are we going to get this porridge mixed into this dough? Similar to the way we got the salt in and similar to how we got the yeast in, we're going to cut it in. Now, if we tried to slap and fold this mixture right now, it wouldn't work. And it would be my dog Biscuit's favorite day because it would be all over the place. Well, as much as I'd like to make him very, very happy, I need this oatmeal to stay in this bowl and in this bread dough. So rather than slap and folding this in, we're going to cut it in, and then we're going to, and I really do think two hands is helpful. You can take your watch off, take your rings off. I did not do that, but it's not a bad idea. Massage this in. I hope that you can see this. Massage it in. And what's our goal? Well, we want, similar to when we were doing the pre-ferment and the autolyse, we're looking for evenness throughout the dough, that the porridge doesn't have any pockets of oatmeal hidden and not woven into this dough. So how are we going to do this? Well, now I'm just going to let gravity help me out and mix this around. And right here, here's a good example. You see, we've got this pocket of the porridge It's really not woven into the dough. So we just keep on going until that's not the case. You can do it this way, keeping it in the bowl the entire time, or once you're not going to be letting oatmeal fly throughout your kitchen, you can return to your bench, to your countertop, and mix it in. And that would just simply look like this. Same process, same motion. But now our goal is not a window pane. We've got good gluten development. Now our goal is to make sure that that oatmeal is mixed in really, really well. If your hands feel like they could use a little break, wet them with the water that you have. Okay. And when you feel like everything is mixed in, this doesn't take too long with this size batch. Again, we've got some tearing here. That's fine. Just keep on going. It will come back together, and it will come back together nicely. It's nice for me to have the opportunity to show you some of these things that will happen in your own kitchen. It's just the nature of bread. So if you heard me say stretch and fold at any time in this video, this is not the stretch and fold section. That is a precursor of what's yet to come in the bulk ferment phase. Hand mixing is work, but it's good work. Feels good. I feel like we're there. I'm going to show you. I'm not going to show you by the window pane, but I am going to show you by the nature of this dough. I can feel and see that it is all mixed in. Okay, so all of the porridge is right in there. It's not stranding. This dough is not stranding. It's all mixed in. When you've accomplished this, we're good. We're done. I'm going to make it pretty using my bench scraper to help clean up my bench. We want to let this move to its next stage.